And for me personally, that was basically a condition on me sort of supporting and being prepared to work on the feature, because I'm not here to create weaknesses in the protocol.
Thank you, Darima. Maybe changing gears a bit, I'm very curious about what Conrado thinks about the medium-term improvements. I know he and the rest of us at the foundation would love to see Frost getting adopted into Zcash, and I don't know if he wants to say something about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's kind of hard to fit Frost into the discussion because it's not related to network upgrade, and this is good. This is something, it's like a good thing about Frost is that it doesn't require change the protocol. You can use it right now if you want to. Of course, we need the tooling, the wallet support, but it's technically possible to use Frost now. So I think for the medium term, is getting deployed, right? Is getting to Frost into wallets. It's relatively simple server that just carries messages back and forth between participants, and that should help getting Frost deployed initially. I think a bit longer than that would be good to have some peer-to-peer communication mechanisms to make that happen. But I think a good start is to use this server, which could be deployed alongside or in addition to light wallet servers that wallets could connect to. But yeah, I think these are the biggest challenge in getting the Frost deployed. There's a zip that's been reviewed, but it's kind of just has been mostly textual changes to make it clear. But the technical content of the zip, I think it's ready. So we know how to use Frost with Zcash. We need to make it happen by, in my opinion, the first step, integrated with wallets. Yes.
Do you know how Bitcoin multisig tends to be implemented? Because I know, so it's a fewer round protocol because the signatures can be made independently. Does that, in practice, make it simpler, or?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's a good point. I'm not super familiar with how people do multisig on Bitcoin. Yeah, since each person produces their own signature, unlike Frost, right? I guess the flow there is a bit simpler. Yeah.
I think one of the big questions with bringing Frost in is usability, and I think in general this is something that we need to think about in Zcash. So I would kind of like to open this question up as, are there any technical improvements we can make to the protocol that can make it more usable? Does anyone want to jump in on this one?
I mean, I think at this point, making any change to the protocol would make it less usable, because what we really need to do is just implement the existing protocol.
I think there was a question of how fast can we get the different exchanges that are using Zcash D today to switch to and so the usability of those very special users is kind of taking a priority, because if we unlock this type of usability, then we at once bring much more speed of development, with Zebra being dropping the old code, and so I think there's a special attention to those users. We might get there faster than we think, right? If we manage to have drop-in replacements and have the Zebra interface mimic very closely what they're used to and what they've already integrated, we could catch up and have them switch to Zebra faster. But that's I think that's a special class of users that we really need to attend.
I'm going to jump in there because I think that's a very interesting one, where maybe what we would implement in Zebra is not necessarily the most usable thing, but it's because I think we could do things that are more modern and more usable, that are not just a drop-in replacement of what Zcash does. And that's kind of a bit the challenge, thinking about, do we do this thing that we know is kind of not the best way to do it, but maybe will be quicker for exchanges that don't want to make any changes on their end? Or do we actually do things properly? Chris?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's definitely a trade-off there, where if we go the route of trying to make a drop-in replacement, we're going to be making engineering choices that are going to continue to frankly haunt us going forward. I mean, this is one of the problems with the Zcash wallet as it exists, is that there are one of the things that makes it hard to move off of is having done that again and again and again in the past. I would prefer that we try to work more towards the future and then really provide the high quality support that customers like exchanges need to integrate with an improved API, rather than compromise our future at the cost, for the convenience of the present.
Yeah. So to me, there are two categories of things wrong with Zcash. There's implementation problems and there's design problems. And the design of the RPC API, especially the wallet RPC API, is awful. It is part of the motivation of getting rid of Zcash, the design of that API, not just the how it's implemented. And yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say. Carry on.
Also, bug for bug compatibility is horrible to try to achieve in the first place. It's costly.
We tried to simplify the API by removing what are they called, labels, or there's some parameter in the API that has to be an empty string, because we thought that was unnecessary complexity, and it was, and it's still too complicated.
Aria?
We could do both to some extent. We could support as close to Zcash as possible, and also allow for configuring Zebra so that it works with a new API that's designed the way we think it should be.
I think they're
true, but the sorry, you first, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, so writing two things, sure, that's absolutely possible, but it's expensive, especially if you want that drop-in functionality to be, for example, if you want the key trees to continue to behave in the way that the key trees have behaved in Zcash, there's a lot of engineering effort that has to go into that. It is not a straightforward thing, because we have maintained the semantics of in the Zcash wallet, there is a concept of separate pools of funds, and what pool of funds a given address belongs to is actually a factor of when that API was added in Zcash's history. So in the original Bitcoin wallet, there was a single pool of funds for all transparent addresses, which were derived from system randomness. Then with the addition of Sprout and Sapling, Sprout had separate pool of funds for each address. Sapling had a separate pool of funds for each address. We finally implemented diversified addresses and zip32 account functionality in NU5. But I mean, it makes wallet recovery a colossal hassle to have to deal with all of those different conceptual pools that may overlap in terms of the key tree. So,
and it's not clear that anyone is even actually depending on that. We have, if we want a compatible interface, then we would have to re-implement it. But does anyone depend on it? It seems that sort of exchanges who want this sort of RPC compatible interface are mainly talking about transparent functionality, and so re-implementing all of the complexity of how shielded pools of funds work is unnecessary to achieve the goal.
It's not even shielded pools of funds, though. It's transparent pools of funds.
Yes, you're right. Yeah,
and the way that it conflicts with our approach to shielded pools of funds. So it's really, this is the opportunity to cut away all of that rot. They were engineering choices that made sense at the time, but they do not make sense today.
I'm not even sure they made sense at the time.
Great. I have a question. I think now is a good time to answer it. It's kind of not related to what we've been talking about, but it's the question is explicit transaction fee on the blockchain won't solve the light wallet problem for historical transactions. Can we add the fee to the light wallet, the gRPC protocol, since the server has this information available for all transactions already?
Yeah, I can respond to that. Yes, we should add it to the light wallet protocol. That won't solve the problems that we really want to solve. One significant problem that committing to explicit fees in the transaction format allows us to fix is interaction with hardware wallets. Right now, there's not a good way for hardware wallets to display the fee separately and or commit to it in a separated fashion, and that's something that it was really a mistake for us not to fix this at the same time as we made the transaction format changes in ZIP 244. It was an oversight, but that means we shouldn't stop from fixing it now. And in terms of transaction size, it adds an additional 4 bytes to each transaction. I don't think that that's material in terms of when we have kilobytes of data in the proofs. So. And we are planning with memo changes to make it possible to save a fair amount of space per transaction. So that will also help a fair amount.
Thank you, Chris. I want to ask a question to whoever wants to answer it. Does anyone have any pet projects that they would like for Zcash to be implemented in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Post-quantum privacy.
That's a hell of a pet project.
I mean, I don't know whether it fits the sort of intended definition of a pet project, but it's important because if quantum computers do work out, then yeah, public key cryptography, as we have known it, is broken. And there are sort of post-quantum algorithms that we could move to, but we need to start doing the design work on that. I was recently at HAX, the High Assurance Crypto Software Conference, and Real World PQC and Real World Crypto, and this was sort of the topic of conversation. Everyone was talking about the post-quantum transition. So it's happening. There was we had a bit of a scare when there was a paper that looked as though it was sort of almost breaking lattice algorithms. That paper turned out to be flawed, but it has demonstrated that we actually need hybrid algorithms. We need to combine the new post-quantum stuff with elliptic curves, which is probably what we would have done anyway in Zcash. But it's important because even if you're skeptical about the feasibility of quantum computers, there are harvest now, decrypt later attacks. So in our case, we have a public blockchain and all of the ciphertext is on the blockchain. But even if it wasn't, an adversary can collect the ciphertext, then if and when they do have a quantum computer, they can decrypt it. And that's a privacy problem. And we need to solve it. And if it turns out that quantum computers never work, that's okay. We've increased the complexity of the protocol a little bit. We've applied the precautionary principle, and the protocol will still work. It'll still be reasonably efficient. It'll be a little more bandwidth intensive, but that's all.
Thank you, Darima. Anyone want to share any other pet projects or like what they would like to see? I think John wants to say something.
Yeah, I really like what's going on in. I gave a demo about it at some point in our calls, on Thursdays. The ZK login, ZK send, and those payment links. I think in Zcash it's called liberated payments, but basically it's the ability to kind of log in with your Gmail and have that as your way of having an identity on a blockchain and receiving funds. And then when you're sending something, you can send it in the form of a link to redeem. And the other side will, by knowing, the specific link, can join and redeem. The whole UX is really, really nice. It's made by the guys at another blockchain ecosystem, but they're using Groth 16 zero-knowledge proofs, really pushing it, but still it works. So it's kind of a pet project, but we're going to try to explore if this is something that we can squeeze in to the Zcash ecosystem. The UX is just amazing. You get a link, and then you log in with your whatever super centralized identity, one of them, but then that's it, and you're onboarded. You have your tokens. You can move them around, and everything is fully just protected. The only thing is that identity provider can steal all your funds. So
yeah, that's a big downside. I was going to raise this.
I'm saying this as long as you know that this is not for your millions for retirement, but this is for casual sending, and you're trusting a Google for 20 minutes, then it's fine.
I mean, why not just use PayPal or Venmo or something if you're going to rely completely on a centralized provider? So if I understand correctly, so if the provider can steal your funds, then what privacy are you getting from the provider? None, right?
No, this is again, you can we can dive into it, but when you're logging in, you can you're getting signatures from that provider, and if you have funds under that identity, then they can generate the transactions to move, and yeah, they can see like what are the funds. They're basically you. But the point is,
can't you get the same or better even usability improvements from something like liberated payments without the centralized identity piece? So you have to have a secure, a private authenticated channel to the payee. But apart from that, that can be Signal, that can be bootstrapped in any way you would like.
I think I haven't seen, so far I haven't seen something that was as easy to use as that particular demo. And I'm probably...
I see that as a challenge.
Yeah, I'm probably just struck by the easiness to the point of not realizing huge gaps, but we're going to be verifying this thoroughly, the figuring out what exactly are the trade-offs, and maybe there's small things that can bridge some of those trade-offs and get the best of all worlds.
It's the old usability versus privacy conundrum, unfortunately. Chris, do you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I think that focusing on usability in that fashion is actually really important. There is something of an open question, though, with that, which is, even if the onboarding is easy, why would people want to use it for Zcash, or why do people want to use Zcash specifically? And I think that's a question that we as a community need to, that's not necessarily a technical road ahead, but that I think is the biggest challenge. Is so I guess the question I'd like to put to the panel is, what ideas do you have, not for how can we improve the protocol, but what kind of applications can you imagine building on the protocol as it stands today, or in the future with CSAs, with some of the changes that we're talking about for the near term, that where the applications are really relevant to some sort of market?
I mean, it's a bit difficult without smart contracts, right? So if we can do smart contracts, then we can basically do anything that Ethereum can do.
I think we're exactly at that long-term conversation, because everybody realizes that in Zcash, smart contracts are like it's not NU6, it's not NU7. I don't know if it's a single-digit NU, but I hope.
Yeah, maybe NU10. Realistically.
And it doesn't have to be this way. This is a point I really want to make. When ZSAs are enabled, they can be their own little haven of chaos, where you can add things that maybe that particular asset will crash and burn, but you can kind of isolate the economic impact of what you're doing, or at least try to do that. So we might end up in a few NUs in a place where you can try to innovate and progress faster in these little islands of assets that are just for those experiments.
Chris?
All right, I have one sort of speculative thing that is essentially ZSA related, which is we've talked about in the past, this notion of wrapped BTC on Zcash and whatnot. One thing that I've always wondered about is chain merges, right? How could one bring disparate blockchains back together? So maybe I don't know. This is a far out idea, but what if a ZSA could be this would probably require some sort of smart contract functionality, but a ZSA could be created. It would also require full node functionality, such that the full nodes validate also, say, the Bitcoin blockchain and respect burns on the Bitcoin chain as transfers into or mints of a ZSA backed or a ZSA shielded Bitcoin.
I mean, we've seen mergers, right? Because the merge of the sort of Ethereum main chain onto the proof of stake chain in Ethereum 2.0 is a merge. From a technical point of view, it's, I mean, I'm not sure of all the details, but I think basically it's solving all the same engineering problems. I think it comes back to, if you want Zcash consensus to be dependent on the, even if only weakly dependent on the consensus for another chain, then yes, to John's point, you need to isolate that, to isolate the economic consequences of that to a particular token. Otherwise, it's just, it's too much of a risk. And even if you do that, then you either pay a lot of complexity by putting it in the base protocol, or you need smart contracts in order to do it. So basically, I think that we need recursion, because recursion unlocks scalability improvements. It also unlocks programmability, because now you can have a fixed size circuit for the recursive verifier, and that can verify your tree of computation, which can be as large as you like, or a directed graph of computation. And so I really regret that we sort of did not prioritize enabling recursion in Halo 2, because I mean, we didn't have the engineering capacity to do that along with everything else that we were doing. But if we had, it would unlock so much functionality and so much sort of potential for the protocol. And now sort of other proof systems have kind of caught up to what Halo could have done if it had been developed along those lines. If it had been developed using some of the same ideas, I would say.
Arya.
In terms of use cases for the next 5 to 10 years, I would really love to see capital markets reflected in ZSAs on the Zcash chain. I think that's probably going to be very useful for everyone.
But by the way, if we want to switch to a fully post-quantum Zcash, that means changing the proof system anyway. So we should definitely, if we do that, recursion should be one of the sort of necessary criteria which we choose for which system we move to.
So I have actually answers or thoughts about both your points. For the capital market, the very first thing that we're doing with ZSAs is adding asset swaps. So it's not like the full-blown market, but it's the first thing you do when you're talking about a market. So this is work that's been designed. It's going to take a little bit of a delay because of the work on Zebra that we're now putting earlier, but it's right around the corner. And then regarding the recursion and like what could have we done with a nice verifier that can do recursion? There's actually a really interesting conversation going on is there one nice standard verifier that we can, as a community, focus all our efforts and demonstrate that it's secure, potentially formally verified. This is an effort that a lot of people in this community are also involved in, and I think that we can have our wish list on what this ideal, trusted, verified verifier, blessed verifier, I don't know how to call it, but we can pour ideas into what goes into it. But I think, yes, now we know that some form of recursion is probably useful for that. But I think by now, it's been the recursion has been demonstrated in many forms and many combinations. So we're able to choose from several schemes. So
yes, I'll steal your thunder. Come to ZK Proof 6.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
No, I said it for you.
Thanks.
I'll be there.
ZK Proof 6 on May 22nd. But that's where basically this is being discussed and selected. Like, what's the what is that verifier that we should focus our efforts on, among many other things. Where we talked about two-way pegging with Bitcoin. There's going to be the BitVM people there that are. If we ever verify Bitcoin, somehow it's going to be some form of BitVM. Anyway, I see like a future in Zcash where it's central, the continuation of unbroken promise of privacy and progress towards more and more features. It focuses a lot of the community, so it's a leading project in this space.
Thank you, John. You answered.
No compromises. No compromises between security and usability.
Yeah, so John answered my final question for everyone to wrap up. We have less than a minute, and it's to everyone. Where do you see Zcash in the next 25 years? I'm going to pick on Aria first.
I see Zcash as a main payment method, similar to credit cards right now, representing capital markets. That's about it for me.
Chris?
I see Zcash as a foundation for applications that people use to collaborate with one another and that can have economic components. Having a distributed economic substrate is foundational to all kinds of organizational structures and new possibilities in the way that people can interact.
John, did you want to add anything to what you said before?
I'm in listening mode.
Yeah, I call that an open economic computation. I've recently sort of coined that, and I'm happy with it because it's a distributed computation, and anyone can join, and it has economic consequences because people agree that it should.
Finally, to finish us off, Conrado, where do you see Zcash in the next 25 years?
Yeah, my view is similar to Aria's. I think I love to see Zcash like a very easy, accessible private payment solution. But yeah, hopefully that will take much less than 2 years.
Great.
We won't be alongside credit cards. We'll have replaced credit cards.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for this marathon of a panel. Please, to my panelists, I would say, please check the app. There's some few questions we've not answered, so I encourage them to go and answer those. And we will end things there because I think we're over time. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Bye.
Thank you.
Nos reunimos hoy con la ZconV. El conocimiento es la voz, uniendo a todos desde el amanecer. Zcash avanza con mucho que hacer. La privacidad y la seguridad son la clave en esta conferencia donde con boba de guía, interacciones reales. Sí, en marca ideal. La privacidad.